Hello. In today's presentation, I'm going to be going over the human reproductive system. So, to start off, the human reproductive system consists of two organs, which are the male organs and the female organs. First, we're going to start by defining the definition of the human reproductive system, which is a set of organs and structures that work together to ensure the survival of the species by producing offsprings. So, to start off, we have two different types of reproductions. We have asexual reproduction and we also have sexual reproduction. When we refer to asexual reproduction, it just means that the offspring are genetically identical to the parent. So, basically, asexual reproduction just means that an organism can make a new individual without a mate or partner. And it also gives the individual the same identical genetic DNA. So, for example, starfish could lose an arm, and sometimes that arm just grows into a brand new starfish with the same exact genetics material or DNA as the starfish that lost the arm. We also have sponges that can break into pieces, and those pieces just turn into a new sponge, or even earthworms. Some can regrow missing parts and form individual earthworms. Then we have sexual reproduction, where unlike asexual reproduction, you do need a mate in order to produce offsprings. Also, with sexual reproduction, instead of using one parent's DNA, you're using both parents' DNA, meaning that the genetic material from both parents create variation in the offspring. And therefore, they're not going to look identical like in an asexual reproduction. Now, going into the female reproductive organs, we have the oviduct, which is the fallopian tubes. And the fallopian tubes are the passageway of the eggs from the ovaries to the uterus. And this provides the site of fertilization by the sperm. So when the sperm enters the vagina, the sperm goes through the fallopian tubes, allowing fertilization to happen in the ovary. Then we have the uterus, where a fertilized egg implants and grows into the fetus during pregnancy. Then we also have the cervix, which allows menstrual blood to flow from the uterus, and it also serves as a pathway for the sperm to enter the uterus. Then we have the vagina, which is where the penis is received during sexual reproduction, and it also allows the menstrual blood to exit the body, and it's also where childbirth occurs. And then lastly, we have the ovary, which produces the egg, and the female sex hormone like estrogen or progesterone. So fertilization, it occurs when a sperm basically penetrates the egg, and when that happens, it forms a zygote. The sperm um, then combines genetic material from both of the parents, and this marks a new individual with the zygote, and it contains a complete set of chromosomes. So in the human, you usually have 46 chromosomes, and from each parent, you receive 23, which is a total of 46. And as we went over, the female reproductive system, it includes the ovaries, oviducts, uterus, cervix, and the vagina. And also, it contains hormones such as FSH and LSH, which regulate the menstrual cycle, where the menstrual cycle is what prepares the body for pregnancy. Therefore, if you do get your menstrual cycle, that means that no egg was fertilized. Um, and if you don't get it, that means that an egg was fertilized in the process of sexual reproduction. So in this next slide, we just have more of a look of what the female reproductive system looks like. In the slide, right here on the top, we could just see how the urinary system works. We could see how everything falls in place. We could also see in this image below the exterior, the external part of the vulva, including the clitoris, the vagina, the urethra, and all of the above. And then to the image on the right, we can also see how everything just looks inside of the body, including all of the components on the side. Okay, now moving on to the male reproductive organs. We have the vas deferens, which just carries the sperm from the testes to the urethra during ejaculation. Then we have the testes, where sperm is produced, and testosterone, the male sex hormone. We also have the penis, which is used for both the elimination of urine and from the body. And it also delivers the sperm for sexual reproduction. Then we have the prostate, which produces a fluid that mixes with the sperm first to form semen. Um, then we have the urethra, which is the passageway for both the urine and the semen when exiting the body. So here it just explains how everything works together in order for ejaculation to happen. So moving on, gametes form in specialized organs called gonads. In males, the testes produce a sperm through spermatogenesis, which results in 4 haploid sperm cells. In females, the ovaries produce eggs through oogenesis, which result in a single ovum and polar bodies. These processes ensure that gametes carry half the genetic material of a normal cell. In this next slide, you could just see more in depth about the male reproductive system. We went over the basics, the prostate gland, the urethra, the penis, ejaculatory duct. You could just see all of these, the testes, and how everything comes together and works in order to produce sperm. Moving on, in this next slide, we could see in this image the journey of the sperm cell. This is basically how everything works. So first step is the testes, where the sperm is produced, the epididymis, where sperm matures, the vas deferens, then the urethra, which is the mix of fluids, then ejaculation, and then after that, it goes in the vagina, from the vagina to the cervix, from the cervix to the uterus, and then from the uterus to the oviducts. And that's how we get to fertilization. In this image as well to the left, you can see how the sperm cell looks like. We have the cap, which contains the enzymes, the head that holds the DNA, the midpiece with the mitochondria, the energy, and then the tail, which is the flagellum. As we can see here to my left, we have this research about people that are infertile and a plan that has been made in order for infertile couples to produce babies. So basically, there's a process called vitro fertilization, short for IVF, sorry, and sperm banking, where these technologies expand reproductive options for individual couples facing infertility. And with advanced science, they were able to create new opportunities for family planning. There are also different alternatives for those who do not want to have any children, like birth control, where fertility could be controlled with hormonal birth control, surgical procedures, or physical barriers. And again, infertile problems with are caused by gamete production, either blocked ducts or uterine issues that prevent implantation. In this next slide, we could see how sexually transmitted diseases can result on the body. So basically, sexually transmitted diseases are infections that pass from one person to another through sexual contact. They could be caused by bacteria. There's different types of sexually transmitted diseases such as chlamydia, gonorrhea, or even syphilis. And there are viruses that are like HIV or herpes or HPV, um, which are more permanent than the bacterias that could be cured. Even having STDs can cause infertility or organ damage or even death, depending on the severe level that you are on or at. And there are preventions that could avoid getting these types of infections by using condoms or limiting the number of sexual partners that you have, or even just regulating medical checkups in order to just make sure everything is okay with your body. Moving on to this slide. This is basically how fetal development begins. And when you take the sperm and the egg, it just fertilizes, forming a single cell zygote, which contains genetic material from both parents. The zygote undergoes rapid cell division, then becomes a blastocyst, and then it implants into the lining of the uterus. And then over the few weeks, the embryo develops as cells specialize to form tissues, organs, and body systems. The placenta and umbilical cord provide oxygen, nutrients, while removing waste to the fetus. And then about 8 weeks in, the embryo is called a fetus, and it begins to have a heartbeat, develop limbs, and recognizable facial features. And then from this point, the fetus continues to grow and mature with the brain, lungs, and other organs becoming fully functional in preparation of birth. So in this image right here to my right, we could see the stages of developments that the fetus go through for the 40 weeks, I believe, that it is in the uterus. And then we could just see the functions of the placenta and how everything looks inside of the female body when the fetus is growing and developing. And to wrap everything up and conclude, in this presentation, we learned that animals can reproduce sexually and asexually. And in humans, the reproductive system involves complex organs, hormones, and processes. This presentation also explores how gametes are formed, how fertilization occurs, and how humans manage fertility and reproductive health. And with that, we learn about the female and male organ systems and how reproduction occurs. Thank you very much.